Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 10 preview where I'll be talking about some of the key players that you should be looking to buy and sell in your FPL teams. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So someone that a lot of people are looking to buy this week, maybe even sell Erling Haaland for, is Mohamed Salah, the king of FPL. And get one thing straight, he is the king of FPL. He's the greatest player we've ever had in FPL. And he just continues to deliver season upon season. And the points that he's had this season and also in recent weeks is just remarkable. And a lot of people, myself included, started the season with Salah. He did quite well, by the way, but Haaland went absolutely nuclear. We then pivoted to Haaland because we thought Haaland would then go even more nuclear. He's then gone on a really rough patch of form, and then Salah has just continued to return. So since game week 6, I think Salah's got 4 attacking returns and 8 bonus points. Haaland has 1 attacking return and 0 bonus points. So it's been a massive swing. And props to you if you just held off with no Haaland. Luckily, I made the pivot in game week 7 as opposed to game week 6, so it's not as bad for me. But yeah, I would obviously just wish I'd stuck with Salah. Because not only has Haaland been blanking and Salah's been returning, but also in the weeks where you wouldn't have captained Haaland, the likes of Saka went big. In the week when I would have captained Saka, Mbeumo went massive this week in game week 9, and I would have captained Mbeumo if I didn't captain Haaland. I've not even worked out how many points down I am just by making what on paper didn't even look like a bad move, switching from Salah to Haaland. Lots of people now saying, hang on a second, I might go from Haaland back to Salah. And listen, I think moving to Salah this week is an absolutely viable strategy. But I think something we have to accept in FPL this season in particular, there are going to be massive swings switching between premiums. And you're going to probably have to, unless you are just saying all season long, I'm going to stick with Palmer, Saka and Haaland and I'm going to have no Salah. Or I'm going to stick without Haaland the entire season. There will be swings week to week. There will be periods of time when one premium absolutely smashes it. And maybe the premiums that you own have a few games where they blank. So we're just going to have to accept that it's that kind of season that you're probably not going to be able to get it right every single week. And there will be rough patches, but there might also be patches where the premiums that you own do especially well. If we're looking at the fixtures, the next 3 are probably the best of all premiums, I would say, if you look overall. Brighton at home, Villa at home, Southampton away. Back-to-back home fixtures for Salah. We know that Liverpool and Salah are just really, really solid at Anfield. And then in game week 12, yes, it's away, but they're playing against arguably the weakest defence in the league. So I think overall as a 3, Salah is definitely a really good option for the next few. After game week 14 as well, you can see it's a couple of difficult fixtures. The fixtures then improve from 15 and beyond. So I do almost feel like if you go out and buy Salah now, you can just hold him through. And then we start to get to that really busy Christmas period in December. And Salah is always a fantastic hold through that period because his minutes are so brilliant. Interestingly, if you look at the data this season, I would go as far as saying for Mohamed Salah, the data is really poor. 0.58 non-penalty expected goal involvement. Overall, for any player, I would say that's really solid data. But for Salah, and for 12.7 million, a lot of the other options at like 6 to 7 million are even getting better data than that. Like Wissa has got almost double the goal threat. In fact, he might have now over double the goal threat of Salah this season per 90. So data-wise, and don't worry, I'm going to talk about other stuff in a second. I'm not just talking about the data. But if you look at the data, if I only did, and this is the issue with expected data and only looking at that. If I only look at the expected data here, I would say Salah is not a buy. He's not worth 12.7 million, and I wouldn't sell Haaland for him. But there are other things to take into account. Firstly, Salah is a very, very good finisher. He's also on penalties. He also gets good minutes. And the big thing this season that has made Salah so brilliant, and the reason he's on so many points, is the bonus points. So if you've not yet seen, I've started a podcast this season called FPL Therapy. It's in person, in studio. We get a different guest on every single week. So I sort of interview a different guest and talk about the FPL game week. And for game week 10, which was released yesterday, I had Baker on the podcast, who are above average FPL. And he is basically a bonus points expert. So I'm going to let him take the next section. It's only 2 minutes this clip. Please do watch it because he explains why Salah has been so fantastic from a bonus points perspective and why that might continue and why that makes him, regardless of the data not being quite as strong, such a brilliant asset in FPL.
I find Salah really, really interesting. I find when I watch Liverpool, because they're more controlled, my brain tells me Salah's worse. That's what my brain tries to tell me, that he's worse. My brain tells me every week when he scores his one chance and stuff like that, yeah, but he only had that one chance. That's what my brain keeps saying. He only had the penalty.
He just finds ways to score.
But what is the difference is that this bit I mentioned earlier about the recalculation of the bonus. He's shooting on target. His shots on target. So 77% of his shots this season have been on target. That's higher than at any point in this season. He gets 1 bonus point every time he shoots on target. He shoots 2 times on target every game. Yeah. There's an extra 2 bonus. Yeah, he gets fouled. He's actually dribbling a little bit more than usual because he's actually collecting the ball a little bit deeper, which enables him to go past someone, as opposed to he used to always get in behind. So all of these,
so many chances as well. So
all
crazy.
These things, and what you're also seeing is not only is the perfect storm of who gone up, but the defensive assets are staying back further, so they're not creating as much as they used to, which is hurting their baseline. And it's also in a position where if they do concede, it's horrendous for their baseline. So last season, his average baseline was around 9, and Alisson was like 17, Robbo was like 17, Trent was like 16, Van Dijk was like 15. So they had such a big start on him that even if he scored a single goal, so last season in 7 games he scored a single solitary goal. He got 4 bonus points in those games. Never happens, basically. This season, because they're not doing as much, his baseline is 14. That's high. That's a big bump. But their baselines also come back a little bit. So they're now around the same baseline. So in 4 games already this season, he scored a solitary goal. 3 games this season, he scored a solitary goal. 3 bonus, 3 bonus, 2 bonus. So he scored double the bonus already.
That's why he keeps getting 10 pointers.
He's getting 10 pointers every time.
Rather than 7 pointers.
He's already on 16 bonus for this season.
Yeah.
He got 25 all of last season. We're in Gameweek 9.
So guys, that is a little clip from FPL Therapy. If you've not listened to it before and you want more FPL content, just search for FPL Therapy on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube and check it out. Every week we have a different guest on to just give their insights, their own personal experience of FPL. People have really been enjoying it, but I obviously want as many of you to see it as possible. So please do check it out and let me know what you think of it down below in the comments. So on Salah, just to clarify, the changes to the bonus point system is that players are now rewarded for shots on target, they gain in the bonus point system, and also fouls won, of which Salah is fantastic for both of them. And defenders also lose bonus points in the system for goals conceded. This means that the bonus point system massively favours attackers now. And also, as Baker said, the slight change to Liverpool this season is that the defenders, despite Trent still creating, by the way, they're just a little bit deeper and they're not doing as much from an attacking perspective. Also, Salah in recent seasons, and even more so this season, just has so many key passes and chances created. It's basically the perfect storm for Mohamed Salah being this absolute bonus points monster. So yeah, I've just pointed to data which suggests that actually Salah's not getting as many chances as he has in recent seasons. That is true. That is objectively a fact. And if you watch the games, you do feel like for large spells, Salah's not massively involved. It kind of is reminiscent of Haaland, where you're like, Haaland's not really doing much, and then he just comes away and scores a goal. And because of the changes to the bonus point system, it's almost like a guaranteed 10-pointer when he scores. And remember that the most Haaland can get if he scores a goal is 9. If you chuck in a clean sheet point in there, Salah can come away with an 11-pointer with 1 goal. And we look at that this season. Against Arsenal, 3 bonus points for scoring 1 goal. Against Wolves, 3 bonus points for scoring 1 goal. Against Brentford, 2 bonus points plus the clean sheet for scoring 1 goal. So it's another 10-pointer. Salah is just so good for bonus points now that if he scores, it's not a 5-point goal. It's a 7 or 8-point goal. And when you then chuck into account captaincy, that's just massive. So I actually think, again, looking at that data, I'm really surprised that it's not like, you can see here it says 0.77, but that's because he's had the penalties. Without the pens, the data isn't as great as I would hope for, but because of the changes to the bonus point system, and because he is a midfielder and gets the extra point for a goal and the extra point for a clean sheet, and because he is 2.7 million cheaper than Erling Haaland, I think I would prefer to have Salah than Haaland right now. I don't think there's a massive amount in it though. I really don't. I am not sure that I would be taking hits to do it, but if you've got free transfers to pivot from Haaland to Salah, taking into account the fact that Salah has been so good this season, the bonus points, the fact that he is on penalties, the extra point for a goal, extra point for a clean sheet, but also how good the cheap forwards have been, I do think a pivot from Haaland to Salah does make a lot of sense. Because it's not just Haaland versus Salah, it's something like Salah and Cunha or Salah and Wood versus Haaland and Rodgers or Haaland and Semenyo. Like the cheap midfielders just, they're not really it at the moment. So yeah, basically to recap that, if I just go back to the Salah graphic, the data for me is very disappointing. Not worrying as such, but that doesn't give me that much confidence. However, when you couple that with watching the games, knowing what Salah is as an asset, him being a midfielder and the bonus points that he's gaining, plus the fixtures over the next 3, where in all honesty, I think Salah's arguably the best captain in 10 and 12, as we'll discuss in the next section. I do think that Salah is a brilliant buy this week. I think if I had the free transfers, I'd be very tempted to pivot away from Haaland into Salah. But, and this is a big but, I do think that it's not an essential switch. If you think that Haaland is great for the next few and you're not fully convinced by Salah, there is absolutely, and we've seen it before, a world in which Haaland goes massive over the next few. Salah continues to get maybe a couple of returns, but Haaland just goes absolutely massive and you regret making the switch. I am looking at it right now. I want Haaland still, but I also want Salah. If you're in a position where you can get to Salah and Haaland, then of course, as we spoke about at the start of the season, that is the ideal scenario. It's just difficult to afford the rest of the players that you want, especially someone like Cole Palmer. So I'll leave it there. Let me know down below what you're thinking of Salah. Final recap, fantastic asset. Bonus points makes him even better. I don't think he's essential though for me. So I've spoken about in recent weeks with premiums, you've got kind of 2 options. You switch them around based on fixtures, or you just hold the premiums that you think are the best. But assuming that you do want to change them around a little bit and that you're not just keeping them indefinitely, I do think that the main thing you should be thinking about is when do you want to captain them and who is the best captaincy option. And if one of these premiums isn't the best captaincy option for an extended period, it then gives you the justification to sell them. That isn't the only thing I'd be thinking about. I just struggle with like form. Unless a premium is looking absolutely rubbish and they're just not returning, they're not getting chances, you really don't think they're good to own, I don't really buy into form with these premiums because they're just, the reason they're priced at this is because over an extended period, they've shown us that they are exceptional footballers that can return on multiple occasions, even in a single game. So you just never know when the next batch of form might come. You might say, yeah, this player's blanked twice in a row, and then they go and get a hat-trick in the next game. So for me, the reason I would be switching them around is based on fixtures and therefore captaincy. So this is a very crude graphic that I've done in terms of I've not thought about this in tons of detail and looked at expected points. I've just gone through and listed the fixtures for each of the premium, and I've highlighted that fixture in green if I think they are the best captaincy option for that week, or at least worth considering alongside the others. So for example, in Game Week 12, I've said Salah or Palmer for Southampton away or Leicester away. For example, in Game Week 18, I think 4 of them are arguably the best captaincy option. So I've then, once I've done that, put a little tally in front of them in terms of how many times between now and Game Week 19 do I think they are the best or joint best captaincy. Let's start with Erling Haaland. This right here, along with Salah being fantastic, is the justification to sell Erling Haaland. There are only 4 weeks where I would say, and you might disagree with me, that Haaland is either the standout captain or the joint best. That would be this week, Bournemouth away I think is a fine fixture. In Game Week 15, I think Crystal Palace away is a lovely fixture. In Game Week 18, Everton at home. Anytime he's playing at home against a team that aren't a brilliant defence, it's great. And then in Game Week 19, Leicester away. Listen, could you captain him in Game Week 11 against Brighton? You absolutely could. Do you think that he's a great captaincy in 12 against Spurs at home? Great, that's absolutely fine. Forest at home in 14, you might go, listen, it's a home fixture for Haaland. I just think Forest are very good defensively. Villa away, United at home. Like, there are fixtures you could captain Haaland. I'm not saying that he would be a bad captaincy option, but when you glance across, I just think there are better ones. And then when you think, right, those are the 4 where Haaland is the best captaincy option or one of the best, in Game Week 10, I'd probably rather captain Salah against Brighton at home, I think, or at least I think he's an equally good captaincy option. In Game Week 12, just captain Palmer or Salah. In Game Week 15, I would say that Salah against Everton away is as good as Haaland against Crystal Palace away, maybe. Maybe you would just about lean Haaland there, but you'd be perfectly happy captaining Salah. And then getting Game Week 18, Everton at home is great, but you've got Salah against Leicester at home. You've got Saka against Ipswich at home. You've got Palmer against Fulham at home. And then in game week 19, you've got Palmer against Ipswich away. So I guess what I'm saying here is the only 4 weeks where I would say, yeah, Haaland is a really good / the best captaincy option. There are perfectly viable alternatives. So do I think you can get away without captaining Haaland for the next 9-10 game weeks? Yeah. So do you need Haaland for that much money? No. I genuinely think there is justification to go without Haaland. Do you know what's frustrating me is this was my argument in game week 1, and it just backfired so horribly for me. And do you know what? I try not to say I'm unlucky too often. I do just think it was unlucky. You could say he had a full summer of rest and KDB was fit and all this narrative. No one expected 10 goals in 5 games, but this is what Haaland can do. And this is the big concern, is that he's just accumulated 2.33 XG in a single game. And I know that was Southampton, but we've seen him do it in multiple games for his Man City career, where he accumulates over 1.5 XG. On his day, he comes away with 3 or 4 goals there. So, no, on paper, I don't think the next 9-10 games are that great for Haaland and for City. But could Haaland go nuclear in any of them? He absolutely could. So that is always the concern. But there you go. If you needed some confirmation bias or justification to sell Erling Haaland, that is it. What else do I notice as I look through this? I also noticed that fixtures-wise, I'm not enthused by Saka up until around game week 16, 17. That's not to say he's not a great player. Like, you don't only own them for captaincy, but I've highlighted game week 13. You could captain him against West Ham away. I'd rather captain Palmer against Villa at home, I think. So then if you take that fixture away, I don't think you really look to captain Saka maybe until 17. But in 17, you captain Palmer probably against Everton away. In 18, you probably captain Salah if you've got him. So again, I don't know that you desperately need to captain Saka in any of the next set of fixtures. But that, again, doesn't mean you shouldn't own him. It's just more justification for if you did want to go without. That's a potential bit of confirmation bias for you. And I guess the thing that stands out for me is the next 3 fixtures. If I buy Salah, I'll probably captain him in 2 of them. Son is a great captaincy option in 11 and arguably the only really good one. Like if I don't own Son, which I'm not going to, I'm going to struggle. It'll probably be one of Haaland or Salah, but I don't love it as a fixture. And then the final thing is Palmer is the standout asset to own over the next 10 game weeks. Like, look at those fixtures he's got coming up. I think he's the best captaincy option or joint best in 7 of them, which is remarkable. 7 of the next 10, I might be captaining Cole Palmer, or at least considering him. The next 2... you absolutely don't have to. So maybe you do wait until game week 12 to move to Palmer. But the likes of Leicester away, Southampton away, Brentford at home, Ipswich away, they are just absolutely brilliant fixtures, and he probably will be the captaincy choice. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Like, this is the way that I'm thinking about the premiums at the moment. So if you were to ask me, who are the 3 best premiums to own? I'm sorry to say this because they're the most expensive. Haaland, Salah, Palmer. I'm going to talk about my team at the end of the video today. I'm planning transfers at the moment, using my free transfers to get to a squad with Haaland, Salah, Palmer. If you were to lose one of those assets, I think it's Haaland, just based on captaincy and based on the fact that he is so expensive that even if he was marginally better than Salah and Palmer, you're saving money and being able to use that elsewhere to own other good assets, which should gain you points. So yeah, I think if you're going to own only 2 premiums, Salah and Palmer, if you're going to own 3, try and get Haaland. But if not, it's just one of Saka or Son. Hopefully that's been helpful for you. But the take-home message from Game Week 12, you need to have Cole Palmer in your team. So the next player to discuss is Dominic Solanke, because all this man does is blank. And in fact, both Dominics have been very frustrating. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Dominic Solanke. Let me know down below if you have the 2 Doms. But they have not been good. And Dominic Solanke in particular, at least Dominic Calvert-Lewin is shooting, because Dominic Solanke at the moment doesn't even bother shooting. He's just playing like literally a central defensive midfielder. It's remarkable. If you watch the games, if you look at the data, it's just been so bad over the last 3. And I'm not saying his footballing performances have been. Spurs fans keep getting really annoyed. He might have been fantastic. He might be like a reincarnation of Harry Kane, but I don't care. We're talking about FPL here, and he's just not getting the chances. If he didn't have Ipswich at home in Game Week 11, I think we're all just sat here saying, yeah, just get rid of him. Like, he's been absolutely awful for us. Just get rid. But we know how poor Ipswich have been defensively. And we also know that Solanke is a great forward, that if he gets chances, he does often convert them. So it is just that Ipswich game in Game Week 11. Interestingly, if you look at the data overall this season, his non-penalty expected goals is 0.51, which is better than Mohamed Salah. His expected assist is 0.09. That puts him at 0.6 non-penalty expected goal involvement. And before you comment down below, this is why XG is a load of nonsense. What this shows is not that XG is a load of nonsense. It's that across the opening 5 games, I know he missed 1 or 2 of them, he was getting so many chances. I've spoken about so many times. In Game Week 5 and 6, he had 7 big chances in 2 weeks. But something has changed in 7, 8, and 9. Ange Postecoglou has changed something about what he's asking Solanke to do to the point where he's just not involved in the attacking play, at least in the more advanced positions. That has to be a big tactical change that he's asked Solanke to make, because a player doesn't go from getting 7 big chances in 2 weeks, not shots, big chances, to then, he's in the last 3 weeks, Solanke's had 2 shots. 2 shots. 0.1 XG in total. He's averaging 0.03 XG per 90. Do you know how bad that is? That's worse than most centre-backs in the league. It puts him something like 200th in the league for goal threat in the last 3 games. It's so bad. So I don't know what has changed. My concern with that is, what if Ange changes it back? What if Ange says, do you know what? That game against Palace wasn't great. We want Solanke scoring goals. I'm just going to ask you to not be dropping as deep, not being as involved in the link-up play. All it requires from Ange is one tactical tweak. Solanke's back as that out-and-out 9, even slightly further forward. Then I will regret selling him. Because only a few weeks ago, I thought Solanke was fantastic off the back of what I saw, where he was getting so many chances. And that's always the concern with when you take a player take a player out based on like a minor tactical switch. But then again, am I just holding on to him in the hope that Ange changes it? Because all we've seen in the last 3 is that he's just not doing it. So I think there is an element maybe of sunk cost fallacy. And what that basically is we've invested in Solanke for this long. We've held him for so many weeks. We kind of feel like we owe it to him to keep him for a little bit longer. And we've made this investment and we feel like we're hanging on and just hoping that he's going to finally return on that investment. Baker in FPL Therapy that I spoke about earlier, he reframed it back to me as, if you were ordering the forwards now, where would Solanke be? And if you were to ask me to order the forwards, I think Solanke would be like 12th or 13th in terms of forwards that I would go out and buy. And so if a player is 12th or 13th in their position, but also very expensive, why am I keeping him? Just in the off chance that there's a change in tactics, or in the off chance that he goes massive against Ipswich. Now, could Solanke score goals in the next 2? Yes. So I don't want you to now sell him and say, oh, you told me to sell. He could absolutely do so, because he is still a striker playing for one of the better attacks in the league with back-to-back home fixtures. So he could absolutely do well. But if I don't think he's a good option at the moment, like, why am I holding him? I'm holding him due to sunk cost fallacy. I'm holding him because I own him, especially if you've got the free transfers to use, and especially given, and we'll talk about them in a second, how many good cheap forwards there are in Wissa and Raul Jimenez and Cunha and Wood and all of these great options that are so much cheaper, even at the same sort of price. Nicholas Jackson has been so good. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I think he is a sell, but if you don't have the transfers to use, or you think that Ange might change it back where Solanke's playing more as the 9, or you just think that Ipswich fixture is so good that you want to keep him, I don't have an issue keeping him for 10 and 11. But I think from 12 and beyond, unless something happens in the next couple, Solanke is a sell. So if you're sat there with free transfers now, I'd get it done. Let me know down below in the comments what you plan on doing with Solanke. So guys, last week we discussed in quite a lot of detail the best cheap forwards to own, so I don't want to repeat content too much, but we've obviously got an extra week of info. We've got the fixtures shifting by 1 week as well. So I have updated this list, and some players have moved up or down in my Raptor ranking. So on this table, we've got obviously their price, minutes per game to work out, are they now, and have they been playing 90 minutes, which none of these have on a regular basis. Their non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90, which gives us a bit of an idea about their assist threat and goal threat together. Shots in the box per 90, fixture difficulty according to Fantasy Football Hub, and there is a link down below in the description to get a 7-day free trial and 30% off if you use that link, and I definitely recommend it. And then also my Raptor ranking, which is putting everything together. Data, eye test, are they on pens, what are their minutes like, what's the fixtures looking like, vibes, gut feeling, and all of that together to rank the assets. So, very briefly, Wissa has to be top. I mean, that is his data is a joke. Like, it's scary. 0.91 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. That's unbelievable. He's got over double the goal threat of Mohamed Salah in terms of the quantity and quality of chances he's getting. He's got more goal threat than Jackson, more goal threat than Haaland. I believe of all players, that is the highest goal threat per 90 that have played a significant number of minutes. It's incredible. Like, if you gave me that data, I'd say this asset is somewhere priced between 12 and 14 million based on the data alone. Now, you don't just look at data. Also, I think Wissa's finishing has improved this season. I still don't think he's an elite finisher. We saw that actually in Gameweek 9. He missed a one-on-one. I still don't think he's elite, but he's definitely improved it along with Brian Mbeumo. 2.44 shots in the box per 90. The fixtures are pretty good coming up. Wissa's got to be top. I can't look at that data and say that he's not. I know he got 90 minutes in Game Week 9. The only concern with Wissa is he's not a 90-minute man. Like you can see here, 67 minutes per game. That did take into account a couple of, I think one time when he came off the bench. So obviously coming back from injury. So I think his minutes probably is somewhere between 70 and 80 is a normal game for Yoane Wissa. Regardless, that is just, it's just, I'm looking at cheap forward this week. I can't really look beyond Wissa. It's just so good. So in first is Wissa. In second, I've got Cunha. Right, I really don't want to scaremonger or put fear into anyone, so please take this with a massive pinch of salt. But we have an FPL account called FPL Black Wolf, who is a Wolves fan. There was an open training session for Wolves. I'll try to remember to flash it on your screen. But because it was an open training session, obviously you see everything. Matheus Cunha was involved in training at the start, but didn't finish training and took a seat on the bench with ice packs on his knees. Now, I think that, well, I know for a fact, being involved in professional football for some of the other stuff that I do, players ice a lot, even if they're not injured, just to maintain swelling, if they have slight niggles, which they often have. Most players have got some kind of issue. It's only because it's open training and all of the cameras are on all of the players at all points that you even see them. Most players after training come back and put ice on things. So I don't necessarily think this means there's an injury. And also, because it was both knees, not one knee, it suggests that there is just maybe a little bit of swelling and a little bit of pain, you would imagine, rather than him injuring both knees at the same time. So as FPL Black Wolf says in this graphic, or in his tweet, I probably wouldn't stress too much about this. But would I go and make an early transfer now for Cunha? Probably not. If you already have, he's probably fine. I just wanted to bring it up because I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't bring to your attention something that I've seen. So if you've not yet made a move for Cunha, just hold off a little bit. Let's wait for the press conference. Let's wait for training pictures. It might be that he's pictured in training tomorrow or the day of you watching this, and then it's just not an issue. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We'll discuss it on Friday, which will be my next video later in the week, and we'll go through it then. But assuming that Cunha is fine, the fixtures are silly from now until game week 18. Just so good for Wolves. He's got very good data. I know it looks like his data is nowhere near to Wissa, and it's not. But remember the fixtures that they've had so far this season. If he's putting up close to 0.5 non-penalty XGI against some of the most difficult opposition in the league, you'd expect that to jump up quite a bit now that he's playing against slightly weaker opposition. He's on all corners, by the way, which is so good for a forward. He's on all corners for Wolves. He takes free kicks, some direct free kicks, some indirect, and we still expect him to be on penalties. And in every game over the last 6 or 7, apart from one, which was against Man City when he got the early sub, he's played 90 minutes. So with Cunha, you just get penalties, set pieces, 90 minutes, exceptionally talented footballer, great fixtures. Cunha is very close to being first for me. The only reason he's not is he's more expensive than Wissa, and the data's not quite as good. In third, I've got Raul. Raul Jimenez is, again, very close to making it into the top 2. The only reason he's not is I just think that I could see Maniz taking minutes off him. And I know people say that's crazy, but I don't think they just shut Maniz out. Now, I know Raul Jimenez, I think, has got 90 in his last 2 games, but could I see the odd game where he misses out? Maybe. On top of that, I think the data is better for Wissa. So I have to, for me being a data-driven manager, just say that Wissa looks like he's getting more chances. And I think that Cunha has more about him in terms of the upcoming fixtures where I expect more points. But I do expect Raul Jimenez to take the next penalty for Fulham because Andreas' penalty was really bad. And also Raul Jimenez has a good penalty record. He's got the most shots in the box per 90 on this list by some distance, 3.47. The fixtures are still pretty good coming up. I've got very little bad to say about Raul Jimenez. For me, that's why I've separated them. Wissa, Cunha, Raul Jimenez are still the 3 best forwards to buy in FPL. People will say I disrespect Chris Wood. He's brilliant. He's scoring goals. It's just the fixtures. Like, over the next few, they're actually okay. Plays against Ipswich, I think, in game week 13. But then he's got Arsenal in 12. I just think, given the fixtures coming up, and given that some of the other assets are also looking very good, I think I'd prefer to own them. His data isn't great, but it doesn't really matter. He just finds ways to score goals. So you can ignore the data if you'd like to. I think he's great. I would have no issue with you bringing Chris Wood in He should be, by the way, 6.4 million now. Slight mistake on the graphic. 6.4 million. I just think that with the fixtures, I'd much rather target Wissa, Cunha or Rao. But I think Chris Wood deserves his credit. He's been brilliant. I would just have him in fourth for that reason. Similar reason to Welbeck in fifth. From 12 and beyond, if I make this graphic again in game 12, Welbeck would be top 3 for me. I really think that. He's just so good. The data's pretty solid. We think in the absence of João Pedro, he's probably on penalties, as is Chris Wood, by the way. Good touches in the box, good shots in the box per 90. Just a lot to like about Welbeck, and he's obviously on a nice run of form as well. So that's the only reason Wood and Welbeck are a bit lower, is just over the next few, I just think there are better fixtures to target. Strand Larsen down. The reason for all of these players from Strand Larsen and below being lower is none of them have particularly good underlying data. They're just not getting a high quantity and quality of chance, other than Calvert-Lewin, who most people just probably aren't going to consider. Strand Larsen, 0.26 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. If you want to know how I interpret that, and again, some people won't like expected data, that's absolutely fine. It means if he plays 90 minutes in every game, he's going to get 1 expected return every 4 games. He's just not getting a massive number of chances, and even the chances he's getting aren't high quality enough to boost that data up. Vardy even, every 3 games, he'll get an attacking return. Ndiaye is at 0.16 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. It's like every 7 or 8 games, he'll get 1 expected return. Eva Nilsson's is okay, but he didn't obviously play. So he started on the bench. Delap, once every 4 games if he plays 90 minutes, and he didn't even start the last game. Archer's data is good, but it's because he's played such a limited amount of minutes that it skews it if you get a couple of big chances. So really, I guess Strand Larsen's okay because of the fixtures, right? That's why he's up there in 6th, because the fixtures are there, and he's still at a very cheap price. But I just don't know that I could bring myself to bring in anyone from Strand Larsen and below. When I look at the underlying data, it just doesn't excite me. So really, I think Wissa, Cunha and Rao do stand in a league of their own over the next 3. But Wood and Welbeck have been so good that even with the fixtures not being perfect, you could still justify having them. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Let me know down below who you would own out of Wissa, Cunha and Rao if you could only own one of them. And let's now take a look at a wildcard team for Game Week 10. So guys, I built a wildcard draft using the Fantasy Football Hub My Team feature. Again, if you do want to check out Fantasy Football Hub, there'll be a link down below. They're still offering that 7-day free trial if you just want to check it out, and also 30% off as well if you sign up to the annual subscription. So I've built a wildcard draft here, and I haven't given this loads of thought. So if you're on a wildcard, please give it more thought than I have. And the first thing is, like, which direction do you want to go in with the premiums? I truly do think that you should own 3 premiums. That is my only advice that I would give to you, is you should own 3 premium attackers. I don't think a 2 premium structure moving forward is the best. I think you'll want to end up changing that. So pick your 3 premiums, and then after that, you build the team around it. In this draft here, I have gone without Haaland. I did say that I think the best 3 premiums, if you had all of the money in the world, would be the 3 most expensive ones. But when you can save 5.4 million going for Saka instead of Haaland, there really is justification to it. And I think if I was on a wild card this week, and I could really build the team however I wanted, I think I would go without Erling Haaland. So this is the team that I've put together, rated at 99%, it's not quite 100. So it's Sanchez in goal, because I think from 12 and beyond, he's arguably the best goalkeeper. You could go for Sells, you could go for Flecken if you still want to. Verbruggen's not a bad shout. There are lots of cheap goalkeepers you could go for. I just think that Sanchez is a really nice pick. Even Pickford, by the way, still good for the next few. Fabianski on the bench because he started ahead of Areola in game week 9, so it might be that he continues to keep his place. The back line, I've actually gone relatively expensive, so you could pull some money out, but that's the benefit of going without Haaland, is you don't have to cheap out. I've got Trent and I've got Gvardiol. They could be season keepers. There is the absence of an Arsenal defender here, and if Gabriel is deemed as being fit, which I don't know at the time of re-recording, maybe you just go for Gabriel instead of Gvardiol or Trent. Or maybe you do stick with Raya. I do think that having Gabriel in, if he's fit, does make a lot of sense, because the next couple aren't great for Arsenal, but longer term, I still think Arsenal defence are fantastic. I've not gone off them completely, but as of right now, with the doubts around him and me just thinking Raya doesn't make enough saves, I've not got an Arsenal defender. Ait Nuri is the other defender, just brilliant. Like, we spoke about Ait Nuri last week. I'm sure we'll speak about him in my team selection video. I love Ait Nuri, the best cheap defender to own for me, so he's in there. And then on the bench, I've got Dalot. People won't like the Dalot pick, but with Amorim coming in, if he plays as a wing-back, we expect Amorim to play a 3-4-3. He's brilliant. If he plays as a right centre-back, he'll probably be good for bonus points because he'll make so many passes. I just think Dalot is going to be a really, really good option. Now, will Dalot start every game under Amorim? We just don't know. Like, he's been very in favour under Ten Hag. I think he will be, especially the Portuguese contingency, but I just think around that price is the one that I would want to go for. If you've got the money to go to a Canate, you could, or you could just go for a cheaper defender at 4.5. And then I've gone for Vandenberg. So that defense is quite expensive, but I just feel like it gives you some really good fixtures over the coming weeks. The 3 premiums that I've gone for then is Salah, Palmer, Saka. So it's a very stacked midfield with then Mbeumo as my 4th midfielder. That midfield 4 is absolutely unbelievable. You've got 4 penalty takers, 4 nailed assets, 4 players that take set pieces as well, like maybe Salah less so, but Palmer, Saka, and Mbeumo taking some set pieces. It's everything you want from assets and more. Like, they've got the creativity, the goal threat, the minutes. It's just, I look at that midfield 4 and it's so solid. The 5th midfield, I've actually gone for Garnacho. And yeah, there's a bit of me as like new manager bounce, maybe wanting to go into that, but it's the fixtures as well. So after Chelsea, it's Leicester, Ipswich, Everton, Arsenal, Forest. It's these next 3 here, Leicester, Ipswich, Everton. I think Garnacho is just a great asset. Even if Ten Hag was still in charge, by the way, I still think Garnacho is brilliant. He just gets a really high quantity of chances. His minutes have been very good. So yeah, he might not be as in favour, whether it's under Rude or Amorim. At the time we're recording this, Amorim looks very likely but not confirmed, but we don't know when that will be. It might be that Rude gets to manage the next 2 or 3 games. Regardless, I just think Garnacho is great. So that midfield 5 is great. And to afford all of these expensive players in the defensive midfield, you've got to go super cheap in the attack. But tell me this front 3 doesn't look good. Raul Jimenez, Cunha and Wissa. The issue that I've got with that front 3 is if any of them stop performing well, there are other players that you could move to. Strand Larsen, Welbeck, Wood. But you could imagine a situation coming up, especially as Raul Jimenez and Wissa are quite cheap, where you need to downgrade someone in order to upgrade them to someone like a Welbeck or a Wood. Or if all of the cheap forwards stop performing particularly well, you might regret it. So I played around with a draft where rather than Raul Jimenez, I had Jackson. And then I had to lose one of my more expensive defenders and just cheap out a little bit in defense. Maybe that's a structure that makes more sense moving forward, is just to have Jackson in there instead of probably Raul, and then just cheap out a little bit elsewhere. But like moving forward, the team just looks exceptionally strong every week. You can bring in Garnacho for Leicester at home. In fact, in game week 11, you've got a horrible benching headache. You could even build this towards a bench boost, by the way. So I don't want to get too far ahead, and this is just a hypothetical draft. But it would probably be Sanchez that you wouldn't play. Fabianski's still got the place. But a bench boost of Raul Jimenez against Crystal Palace, Dalot against Leicester, and Vandenberg against Bournemouth at home. You've not even got that much money invested on the bench, but it's good enough, and that's a very, very solid bench boost. So you've got the options there. In game week 12, it still looks amazing. Like look at that team in game week 12. That looks like a wild card for game week 12, which is what you want. You don't want a wild card in 10 and then not think about 12, but everyone there has got pretty much a good fixture. Game week 13, it continues. Like, it's just a really, really solid draft. Now, what are the issues with it? Inflexible, like I said, in terms of those forward positions. If Erling Haaland decides to actually start putting the ball in the back of the net, you could be in big trouble. But outside of that, I mean, it's really, really solid. So let me know what you think of it down below. That's what I would do if I was on a wild card. But definitely don't feel like you have to sell Erling Haaland. I'm not advising that you definitely do it. I'm just saying, look what you can put together if you do. So guys, I thought I'd just finish up the video with just discussing some of my midweek thoughts around my team. And these might change day by day, so do take them with a pinch of salt. But the reason for it is normally I would upload my team selection on a Thursday. I can't explain what I'm doing yet. But on Wednesday and Thursday, I've essentially the dream collaboration, the biggest thing that I've probably done since being on YouTube. I can't share exactly what it is at the moment, but it means that I am not Thursday. So I'm going to be uploading it on Friday morning, which is a little bit later than normal. So as a result, I thought I would just share my team thoughts with you right now. So this is the team as things stand. The first thing is around Gabriel. At the time of me recording this, don't have an update. It looks like it's not particularly serious, in which case I could keep Gabriel, I could sell him, I could sell Raya if I don't want the double Arsenal defence. But if he wasn't available for this week, but I wanted to hold on, I can just play Leif Davis. I know people don't like the Leif Davis pick. I'm not expecting much, but it is Leicester at home. And I feel like if Gabriel isn't out long term, he is a perfectly fine hold if I want to keep him. So that's that situation. Let's see what happens. Then if I look at my team, there are like 3 things that I don't like. First is Foden, and I don't have an issue with Foden. I just brought him in last week. I still think he could do very well against Bournemouth and Brighton. He's still a great asset. He was very unlucky not to return in game week 9. His data was actually pretty good. He created a couple of chances for Haaland. 0.9 XGI. Like in another game, you expect him to come with at least an assist, maybe more. So I don't have an issue with him, but would I prefer Saka or Salah? Yes. And I know I've just removed Saka, but this was always the risk. So that's one position that in an ideal world I'd change. The next is I don't love having Rodgers and Dibbling. For me, I don't love having to play Rodgers every week, and I don't ever want to start Dibbling, really. So in an ideal world, I'd keep Rodgers, upgrade Dibbling, and it would allow me, in weeks where I don't want to start Rodgers, which may be this week. I mean, Spurs isn't a bad fixture, but I don't ideally want to start Rodgers this week. Then I can bench him in those weeks. So that's the other thing. And then the final thing is Solanke. We spoke about him already. In an ideal world, I wouldn't have Solanke. There are many other forwards that I'd prefer. So when I put all of that together, I've got 3 free transfers. So let me just go to my transfers to show you this. So I could roll. Don't need to make a transfer particularly. Team's fine. I could reverse the transfer and go Foden back to Saka. I could sell one of Raya or Gabriel with one transfer. I could downgrade Solanke and just do Solanke to Wissa and just leave it at that. I could upgrade Dibbling, by the way, to Buonanotte is a transfer that I looked at because I think he's great. He's got Leicester this week, which I know clashes with Leif Davis slightly, but just sort out my 5th midfield. Like, there are lots of more passive moves that I could make. However, what I'm thinking at the moment is a big boy triple move, which involves, and I know I've just brought him in, but you don't want to be stubborn. If I don't want him as much as Salah, then I take him out. So Salah out, and you're thinking, Ross, don't sell Haaland. I'm actually not. So it's Solanke down to Wissa is the other move. And then the third move is either Gabriel or Raya downgraded. And with the news around Amorim, with the news around just Man United not being with Ten Hag, with the fixtures coming up, I currently have 0.1 to make this happen. If there are multiple price changes, maybe I can't afford it, but I think I should be okay. So I'm going to make the transfers, but not actually make the transfers. Just leave it on the screen like that. I always worry. So it's Gabriel, Foden, Solanke out for Dalot, Salah, and Wissa. People will hate the Dalot pick. It could be any cheap defender, but basically, I'm pivoting away from double Arsenal defence and losing Foden and Solanke for Salah and Wissa. It feels like an upgrade. It really does to my team. And this then means that I have Palmer, Salah, and Haaland. I have the 3 best premiums. I don't have Saka, which in an ideal world I'd have Saka as well, but you can't afford everyone. If I want to keep Gabriel, I can sell Raya. And I've got up to 4.7. So I could go for Sanchez. Not great fixtures over the next 2, but as I said, maybe the best long-term goalkeeper. If I get priced out of that, then anyone at 4.5 or 4.6, maybe I just go for Sells because he's playing for a great defence. Maybe I go for Verbruggen for the long-term fixtures for Brighton. So it's basically how much do I want Salah, and am I happy selling Foden and Solanke to get him? And when I think about it, Foden's great. I think he probably will return against Bournemouth, but I prefer Salah. And do I have any issue selling Solanke? No. I do have this gut feeling that I'm going to regret it and that Solanke might score in the next 2, but I need to go based on what I'm seeing with my eyeballs and with the data, and Solanke just doesn't look great at the moment. So yeah, that triple change, all 3 free transfers being used is what I'm planning. Something like that, or like I said, Gabriel to Dalot if I want to instead. Let me know what you think of those moves. Let me know what you would do if this is your team. So basically, to keep you in suspense, I could do anything from rolling to using 1 transfer to using all 3. I'm really not sure at the moment, but I'd love your opinion down below. So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week 10 preview of a little look at my team as well midweek too. If you did enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. 2 things for me. Make sure to check out FPL Therapy. There is a link down below in the description to check out that podcast if you want more content from me in the coming days and in the coming weeks and months as well. And also check out Fantasy Football Hub for 30% off. There'll be a link down below in the description. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.